It's been a grueling couple of years for Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers, where despite the talent on this team's roster, they just haven't had the health or timing to make a legit playoff push. But for the first time in a long time, Joel Embiid has started and played in 6 consecutive games, and he's been logging over 33 minutes per night. And to go along with that availability on the court, he's been scoring over 27 points per game, while shooting 59% from below the arc. But exactly how good is this new version of Embiid? And can Philly actually rely on him come playoff time? Now, as a scorer, Embiid does his best work playing with his back to the basket. Even with his knee not being 100%, he still has really good strength, footwork, and touch. On his pickups, he's great at turning and bumping to create windows for these hook shots. Watch him again here turn into contact to create space to elevate. We'll see him again create this angle by turning, and now he's going to jump stop across the paint. Along with Embiid being able to bulldoze his way through contact, he also has the balance to counter with pivots. We'll see him again here lower his shoulder into contact, but when this extra defender steps up, he's got the control to pick up and pivot across. Embiid also has really good touch around the basket, so he does have the ability to score from over the top if the defense throws multiple bodies at him. This right here is a high arcing push shot over Alex Sarr. In spots, Joel can also surprise the defense with his quickness. The burst he had a couple years back is gone, but he does have enough to catch the defense off guard with these quick spins off the catch. So the blend of Joel's footwork, touch, and strength around the basket, I still think makes him one of the top tier post scorers in the league. And if defenses let him play in single coverage, it's going to be an automatic bucket. Now, it's also important to note that Embiid's lack of lift off the floor does limit his rim finishing. If he can't bump and create any meaningful angles, he kind of falls back to these awkward and off-balance looks. As he turns past his initial man here, you would ideally like to see him explode through Cooper Flagg's body, but this underhand floater is a tough look. Now, I'm sure the hope is that as time goes on, that Embiid gets progressively more confident and stable with his lower body. But even though that explosiveness isn't there, his physicality, footwork, and touch is still more than enough to make him an elite interior scorer. Now, with the ball in his hands, Embiid's scoring also extends outside the paint. And so far this year, he's putting up some career best numbers in the mid-range. And what makes him so effective from these spots is that he has a variety of ways to get these looks off. He can face up and use those pivots to create breathing room, or dribble into contact to then bump and separate. When playing out of the post, Embiid also has really good flow on these turning jumpers, and he's comfortable getting into these looks over either shoulder. But I think the best shots for him are when he uses his body to bump and create space. He's first going to work Mitchell Robinson down here, to then just bump and fade out for an elbow jumper. And Embiid being a really good in-between scorer also gives him easy counters for double teams, where if he has to deal with an extra defender, he can just organize his feet and rise up from over the top. And then naturally, him being able to pop jumpers from the mid-range feeds back into his attacking game, where the pressure he receives off the catch gives him the leverage to initiate more drives. And despite his banged up lower body, I do think he's shown really good flashes of control and balance when attacking off the bounce. Watch him drive hard to his left here and absorb that contact to then re-attack towards the middle. He's matched up against a really good wing defender here, and he's again able to drive into contact to then change direction back towards the middle. And from here, he's right back to bumping and stepping his way into a finish. This is an elite play here, where off the catch, he's going to attack Brunson closing out by ripping towards the middle. These are plays you typically see by athletic guards or wings, but a 7-foot center having this much coordination and balance is crazy. So while there is an athletic pop that's missing in Embiid's game, he's still a pretty effective inside-out scorer. And from just a raw number standpoint, he is giving you efficient offense from the paint and in the mid-range. Now, before we go any further, we have to talk about the way Embiid draws fouls. And from the film I've watched, I honestly have mixed feelings. On one hand, Joel is a really physical big man who often draws fouls by just exploding through contact with the intent to score. Because he is a really big and physical guy, that does draw authentic fouls. But then on the other hand, he does go out of his way to flail up and hump for calls, which can work for him in spots. But at the same time, I do think it hurts his game. Take this play for example. He's going to catch in the paint, to then turn out and flop to the ground to draw the foul. But then against Chicago, he goes for a similar play but doesn't get the call. There's also many times in post-ups and isolations where Embiid will create an angle, but is too focused on hunting for calls as opposed to scoring the ball. We'll see him hit that quick spin to his right. And with all this space in front of the basket and his man behind him, Embiid should be going to the basket with the intent to score, but he veers back towards his man and looks for the refs to bail him out. So again, because Joel is a very physical and paint dominant big man, that's naturally going to lead to plenty of free throws. But I think him just selling out on plays to get calls, even when he creates an advantage, isn't really doing much for his game. So outside of post-ups and isolations, Embiid after that is primarily used as a pick and roll man, and his numbers from these spots really aren't that good. And the biggest thing is that Embiid isn't a lob threat, and that was also the case before his injury. In pick and roll, he's primarily popping up behind the line or stopping short from 10 to 15 feet. And granted, he is a good shooter, so this can work in spots. But ideally, you want your big man to have some presence around the basket while rolling. And Joel exclusively stopping from 15 feet and out does handicap his efficiency. Joel Embiid for 3. But again, him stopping short in the mid-range does give you some good offense. He's still shooting over 50% on in-between jumpers. Plus he can't put the ball down and attack matchups in open space. And the thing is, because you have guards like Maxey and Edgecombe pulling coverages towards the ball, Embiid often gets the opportunity to attack breakdowns off the catch. Look how Maxey here pulls AD across, and with just a pocket pass, Embiid gets his runway to go at Cooper Flag. So Embiid still being a tough one-on-one matchup, while being able to feed off the gravity of Philly's guards, I think is plenty to make him a 25 plus score on a night-to-night basis, even if he's doing it on one leg. Again, I think his injury and confidence is holding him back from truly being at his peak, but at the same time, the guy's still a really dynamic scorer at the 5. However, scoring for Embiid has never really been a big issue. If you've been following his career for a while, you would definitely know that passing has been his biggest area of improvement. But in a weird way, I actually think Joel's injury forcing him to slow down has actually upgraded his passing a lot. First, off the catch, he's done a much better job of just initially scanning the floor. Because he's typically pulling double teams from the block, the weak side is naturally at a disadvantage. And from there, it just comes down to reading the court and making the right play. Look how he reads Klay Thompson shifting down. So that's going to be a skip past the opposite corner, which puts the defense in a scramble. This year, Embiid's also found a variety of ways to deliver the ball. Obviously, his size naturally gives him windows to pass from over the top, but he can also whip these underhanded shovel passes, and the timing and accuracy on these is really good. Joel's also been leveraging that scoring to create additional space for his teammates. Look, he's going to fade out and sell the shot to pull the backline defense up, clearing up the rim for this lob pass. In the post against Jaren Jackson, he's going to hit this drop step towards the middle, which pulls the weak side across and sets up this corner 3. Now, sometimes the delivery that Embiid tries to make are pretty well off the mark, but I would still argue that right now, Embiid's passing is at an all-time high. Now, when switching over and looking at Embiid's defense, this is where I think Philly fans should have some worries. First, the thing is, he's kind of stuck in this awkward in-between spot, where he doesn't have enough length or verticality to be an elite rim protector, while also not having the foot speed to step out and switch. So that's kind of turned him into your typical drop defender at a pick and roll, where he just sits back a level below the action, and the hope with this is that you funnel the ball handler into long contested twos. And what really makes this work is Philly's backcourt defenders. Having guys like VJ Edgecombe and Paul George who can step up, pressure, and navigate screens is a must for any drop coverage. And those guys on the ball have been able to blow up actions and make plays. But at the same time, having a lumbering big man sitting back below the action does leave you vulnerable to a lot of breakdowns. If the screener can shoot, pick and pops are regularly available. Or if an athletic and skilled ball handler can cleanly turn the corner and has space to go at Embiid, he does have a hard time containing the ball. Now, to mix up the coverages, Philly will occasionally have Joel hard hedge out, and this is meant to push the ball handler's momentum back, which both gives the rest of the floor more time to rotate and gives Embiid time to recover back to his man. But again, what really makes this kind of coverage work is Philly's backcourt defenders. We'll see Embiid here again hard hedge to push the ball back, and Edgecombe from here keeps the ball in front and forces his turnover. So while Philly can find ways to hide Embiid by mixing up the coverages and leaning on their backcourt talent, there's still times where his warts become too much of an issue. First, if he's put in a position where he has to switch and contain the ball in open space, that lack of foot speed becomes a major problem, where you'll often see him sacking back below the line and giving up clean pull-ups, which isn't a recipe for success against the top-tier isolation scorers. Look how much space he's giving Peyton Watson here, and he just gets walked down below the elbow, giving up a clean pull-up. So one adjustment Philly will make if Embiid is caught on a switch is just throw an extra defender at the ball, which again can work, but it does bend your defense even more, which can lead to more scrambles. I also think Joel's instincts in the paint can be a step slow. He'll often lose track of the ball or not give any effort on rotations. On the weak side here, look how he allows the ball to get all the way around to the other side of the rim for a reverse layup. But the thing is, there's also times where he'll show really good effort. If he's honed in, he still has enough of a burst to cover ground and blow breakdowns at the rim. In pick and roll, there have been flashes of him stepping up to the level and containing the ball. As Watson here tries to get this baseline drive, look how Embiid is able to slide and close us off. This might be the best defensive clip of the year, where in isolation he initially gets caught backpedaling, but he's still able to organize his feet and take away the shot at the rim. So going forward, I do think Embiid's defense will make or break Philly in the playoffs, because they're most likely going to be matched up with New York or Detroit, who both have elite guard play. So whatever Philly decides to do tactically, Joel has to be bought in. And the thing is, I still think there is enough physical ability to do it. He may not be elite in one specific area, but I think he's shown that he can hold his own from every spot on the floor. His size alone makes him a really good presence down low, and he does have enough foot speed to contain the ball in spots on the perimeter. I think if Joel can just do enough to stay afloat defensively, Philly's backcourt and wing defenders can give them an above average defense.